Thank you so much for being here. Woo, I'm honored to speak to you today. I'm very humbled to share my thoughts and my personal journey with my African American community, with my Muslim community, but most importantly, I'm honored to share my thoughts with all of you, my sisters, and I see a few brothers. You know, I've always been a dreamer. A daydreamer, that is, but a dreamer nonetheless. At a very young age, my mind would often drift away. I didn't realize until I became an adult that I was dreaming of a more fulfilling life. A life where poverty wasn't always at the forefront. I yearned for more thriving and less surviving. Growing up the eighth of 11 children, yes, my mother and father produced 11 children together, our socioeconomic status dictated that we didn't get out much. We were home mostly, we were broke. When we ate meals like beans and rice, I would envision lasagna with ground beef and like extra cheese. When my little brother and I shared a pair of shoes, I wished that, or I dreamed that we had a room full of shoes to ourselves. I knew that being young and having few life experiences meant that I didn't know much about the world. So I dreamed that I was a scholar and I knew the meaning of life itself. Or I was the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company and I could provide my family with the stability that we needed. When winter nights were cold and windy, my dream was for fluffy comforters and a warm and cozy fireplace. My dreams felt so vivid, as if I could reach out and touch it. And it was on that very night that a tiny flicker of fire remained with me, keeping my imagination bright with hope. I was primarily homeschooled by my mother, who taught me all that I knew. Math, English, Islamic studies. She taught through repetition, she taught through beatings. That was very customary for old school Trinidadian upbringing. But most importantly, she taught by example. When she prayed, we prayed. When we had to wake up at the crack of dawn to work in the garden, she was right there along with us. My parents were very strict and paid close attention to who we associated with and places that we were allowed to frequent. The buddy system was implemented and my siblings and I always traveled in pairs. We were expected to follow a very specific set of rules. Although where I traveled to was limited and my mother was strict about most things, she did not stifle my imagination. She allowed it to run wild and free. She showed interest in my design perspective and encouraged it. I would make little outfits for my dolls and younger siblings. I would wear very outlandish creations of my own, much like what I have on right now. One piece that I was very proud of was actually a pair of patch pants that were made from black and pink satin, and I wore them all the time. I discovered my passion early, at the age of 6 to be exact. It grew with me as I grew up, sewing for siblings, friends, neighbors, from elementary school through middle school, then high school, and eventually continued into my adult years. Now, when I became of age, I was actually expected to pursue nursing. Being a nurse would provide job stability, I'd make real money, and I would essentially, be working a real job. I attempted to do the right thing, even started taking prerequisites, anatomy and physiology 1 and 2, and microbiology was next. By this time, I was in my early 20s, married, far from home, far from everything that I'd ever known. Although learning, growing, and experiencing new things were very important to me, I felt that by pursuing nursing, I was leaving a very important and a very special part of myself behind. Sewing was everything to me. I wanted my sewing to be more than just a hobby. It uplifted me when I was down and needed a zen moment. It celebrated with me when I was excited and needed to create something very beautiful. It was my oxygen, my very first bold form of self-expression. As that quiet little dreamer lost in a crowded world of 11 children, It helped me find my voice. And soon, my contribution. There is no Ayana Ife without threats all around me. And if you ever lived with me, you would know that to be true. So that summer I decided, while alone in my apartment on campus studying anatomy and physiology too, I was by myself with my thoughts, I was unfulfilled, I was unhappy. I took a break from studying and I went to watch a YouTube video. It was of a designer named Rabia Z, whose models were in the most amazing flowy outfits in Dubai, with hair and pants and cool hijab styles, and I was in awe. And in that moment, I felt like I was betraying myself. Like Allah, like God was telling me, no, smacking me in the face saying, Ayana, I gave you passion and a knack for art to create from your very hands. The ability to transform a two-dimensional object into a three-dimensional design that is aesthetically pleasing, that is immaculate, that is breathtaking. How dare you discard that gift? I made a commitment. After finishing up my summer semester, my summer classes, I would invest in my passion, I would invest in me. I would get in the driver's seat of my own life and I would learn along the way. I would do something outlandish by finding success and peace of mind through living my dream against all odds, inshallah. There was definitely backlash from my family about leaving the medical field. They felt like I was making a huge mistake. They were concerned about job stability, about making real money. And I know their concerns were valid, but I wasn't willing to give up on the pull that I felt towards design. I didn't want to argue. I could see it. And I knew that in time, they would see it too. I knew that I could show through my actions what I was capable of. Yes, this small town girl who grew up wearing hand-me-downs and charity clothing was now daring to take control of her own life and live fearlessly. The summer of 2013, I finished up Anatomy and Physiology 2, and by August of that year, I was enrolled in apparel design at Middle Tennessee State University. Luckily, A&P and all of my other classes transferred over and worked as gen eds, so that was one leg up. With the help from my professor, Dr. Pishut, I put myself on a strict schedule. That meant extra hours of work, tons of sleep deprivation, but eventually earned me recognition from the school fashion shows, departmental awards, as well as acknowledgement for being an outstanding senior and having a high GPA in the apparel design program. I wanted my time on campus to be swift and meaningful, to learn all that I could and to push myself forward. My undergraduate degree was intended to be a stepping stone that refined my skills, which it did. In 2 short years, I graduated magna cum laude with a Bachelor of Science in Textiles, Merchandising, and Assembly. Thank you. Apparel design was my concentration. When my mother discovered that my passion was different than her expectations of me, she supported it. She showed up to my shows, she helped out at my shows, she even referred me clients. Growing up, she would always tell us that our current state of affairs did not dictate who we could be. She said, they say if you dream it, you can achieve it. She said, be prepared. Be ready for when the door of opportunity opens, because you never know when your big break will come. So work hard and live your life in a state of ever preparedness, a state of I can and I will, and you will. Because I did, and because I am doing. The work doesn't stop. Seeing how far you have gone paves the way for going even farther. With every accomplishment, celebrate and set higher goals. After graduating in May of 2015, I knew it was time to create my brand. Implementing what I had learned in school, I hit the ground running. Conducting target market research, pricing fabrics, creating prototypes, as well as producing my newest collection. My first significant show after graduating was actually out here in DC. It It was either August or September of 2015, and that's where I met Sister Nisa, the event organizer tonight. So thank you so much for reaching out to me then and for reaching out to me now. I thoroughly enjoyed the show, and I'm enjoying myself right now. So I had the technical skills, but I lacked the business knowledge. Creating a brand from the ground up is not easy. The concept of being an entrepreneur frightens some people. It's too risky, blah, blah, blah. I understand that it's not for everyone. But what people sometimes forget is that at some point, all companies started smaller. We are all either working for our own dreams or someone else's. We all have our passions. We are all driven and motivated by different things. Whether you become a doctor, a lawyer, a biochemist, a molecular biologist, a leading professional, a leading female in a professional field, push forward. You have to want it more than the fear of not succeeding. That's how much you have to want it. You have to be hungry. No, you have to be starving. All of our dreams are relevant, but you have to believe in your own dream first. Everyone won't support it, especially in the beginning stages. And sometimes, people are simply not in your corner. That doesn't make them bad people. That just means that they don't see your dream like you do. You have to prove to people what you are about. I know this all too well. After graduating with my bachelor's degree, I moved from Tennessee to stay with my family in South Carolina. Just me and my cat. Unfortunately, my marriage hit a pretty rough patch, and we decided time apart was best. Eventually, we got divorced. Later, I learned that although my marriage failed, that didn't mean that I was a failure. In the wise words of Sean Combs, aka P. Diddy, a rapper, singer, songwriter, actor, record producer, entrepreneur, he's my personal motivation because his disposition towards life and success is raw and it's real. He says that it's about falling down and getting back up. Falling down and getting up, falling down, getting up, falling down, getting up, falling down, getting up, falling down, getting up. Every day I'm afraid. What if I fail? What if people don't like my designs? What if no one comes to hear me speak? What if I'm judged harshly for being divorced? I know that failure will come. It's a part of life. But it's what you learn from it that truly matters. I fell. I spiraled downwards. But I didn't stay there. I got back up. Thank God for the pain that keeps me humble and continued pushing forward because life goes on. If we dwell on the bad, we will miss the good, and I don't want to miss anything. So I push forward. Have courage to dream. Then fight for your dreams. Stare fear right in the face, and there is no fear to face, there is only bravery. And once again, another life lesson from P. Diddy. You cannot achieve success without failure. It's simple, but it works. If we dwell, oh, already said that. I knew my story wasn't over because I'd been given a second chance to write it on my own terms. I also knew that I couldn't live off of my mother. I refused to. So I packed my bags and my cat and the few $100s that I had left to my name, and I flew from South Carolina to Utah. Yes, Utah. My sister lived there. She said, stay with me until you get on your feet, and so that's what I did. My life's transitions definitely slowed the pace of my business, but I didn't want progress to halt. So I joined an entrepreneur group through Meetup to help with business. I also got myself